Frack. Live stream is going to be about the Oria King plot that was brought up in the chats that people were having some questions and concerns about, as well as to kind of explain exactly what's going to happen with that in relation to other things, because I know there's a lot of kind of debate and possibly even dislike for what has been revealed by this. Now, the Oria King plot, just to summarize for those who may not have had the opportunity to hear about it, read about it, etc. The Oria King plot is where there is an immortal Thea called Oria King, and it's going to be roleplayed by Gem. She and Oria King essentially was... there's still bits and pieces being figured out between Gem and I in the chats and stuff, but this is something that I have approved of, just to let you all know. Gem did mention that, but I'm just confirming it. And basically in this plot it goes that there's Oria King, who is an immortal, and she and there is, it's a part of her power, and there are weaknesses. We discussed, like I said, I've discussed everything with her. I'm approving of, we're getting things approved, we're getting details worked out, etc. So just bear with me. But she is an immortal Thea that lived a long, long time ago and was ruling over a family. And then one of the families moving in, as families moved into New Zealand, they kind of pushed her aside, and because of that, she's now kind of seeking revenge. In the form of going after Easter, who is the new King of Kings, and the Hawthorns. And because she's and her whole goal is to become the new King of Kings, but because of the tradition states, and this is something I'm very, very strict on, because the tradition states that no woman can rule the families, she's going to be ruling through her puppet king, which is going to be roleplayed by me. Currently no name, etc. He's just going to be this, like, completely easily manipulated cinnamon roll kind of thing. So the plot goes that she's going to try and overtake Easter and become the new King of Kings. Now, some concerns that were brought up. One of the concerns that was brought up that I saw in the chat was, you know, like, okay, we just had this huge usurping thing going on where Easter Hawthorne took over the Pendragons, wiped out the family, did all this stuff, and he became the new King of Kings. You know, and the whole thing is like, okay, now we're doing that again. No. We are not doing that again. The thing with Easter becoming the King of Kings was a very detailed plot in the making, and it was executed in a very detailed manner. And the Oria King plot is going to be detailed as well, and pretty much I am leaving everything up to Gem as far as what her family does. And of course, me being, and like the Puppet King is, I'm only role-playing the Puppet King because, I'm the most reliable person that shows up for roleplay and whatnot, and also I do want to be, my bangs are, okay. I do also want to be involved in this a little more closely, just so that I've always, you know, got my eye on things and how they're going. But the Puppet King himself and I myself will not be the driving force behind overthrowing Easter. That will all be up to Gem and what she decides in the roleplay. And as far as, and of course, me playing as Easter, the Hawthorne family is going to fight back as hard as it possibly can, and I'm going to be doing everything in my power to work against her, which is going to be interesting. But now, of course, as I was saying, everyone was going like, well, we just had this whole plot with the King of Kings being replaced. No, this is not a copy of that plot. That plot was done for my specific world-building purposes. This one is a player-driven thing, which I'm totally for. If you're a player and if you get your plot approved, even if it's something like, I want to take over the King of Kings, if you can have it well thought out and things of that nature, I can approve plots like that. Does that mean it's actually going to happen? No. An approved plot does not mean things are going to happen word for word as described. It just means that you can try, by all means. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen. Easter being replaced especially so soon, no, that's not going to happen. I have already told Jem that this is going to be a long plot in the running. There's going to be a lot of roleplay involved as far as getting that all started. So this isn't, and there's going to be, quite a few plots in between, as far as, episodes. I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 episodes, depending how long they run for, 2 or 3 episodes between now and whenever that Oria King takeover plot really takes off. So that was one of the concerns, was the whole, like, wow, we're doing this right away. The other concern was, how easy is this? It's not going to be easy whatsoever. Easter is the new, and by that, and I guess I should also break that a bit up. The first one being that this is not Easter versus Oria's family. This is this is all of New Zealand, in fact, the entire world versus Oria King. Is this going to be easy? No. Is there a way to do it? Yes. The Hawthorns did take over the Pendragons after all. Easter had a lot more going for him when he took over the Pendragons, of course. But he still did take them over in the end, hence why he is recognized as the new King of Kings. Oria King is not going to have as easy of a time. It is going to be more difficult. Again, this is a me versus Jem thing. Like, I'm going to empower her as much as possible in, here's what you are capable of doing, here's what you can do. Yes, you can do these things. No, you can't because of site restrictions or world building restrictions. And then I'm also, based on, I'm not power planning, not god modding this. It is totally Easter versus Oria. It's totally, but it is going to be the world versus Oria. And so again, it's not going to be that easy. It's not going to be a one versus, however many people decide to join Oria's family. There's going to be a lot more involved with that. The second part of that is the thought of, well, so many people don't like Easter. That's actually not true. The whole thing about when Easter met up with the Godfathers, and when first I will always reiterate this, because it's very easy for people to forget this, because we are good people, and we try to be good people in real life, but this is not real life, this is a game, this is characters. These characters are mafia. Have you ever watched Godfather? Have you ever watched Pulp Fiction? Have you ever seen even, like, the bad guys in, like, the Arrow TV show? Or have you ever seen something where there's mafia members or gangsters? That's what we're playing as. We're playing as immoral, evil people doing immoral, evil things. And yes, I have the restrictions and rules because I don't want this to become some weirdo. Like, I stopped the neo-Nazi from joining, I've stopped, like, porno people from joining, that kind of thing, but we're still very much dealing with bad people. And so, even though it's like, oh, they're nice doesn't mean good, and bad doesn't mean mean, bad does not mean, I can't brain right now, bad does not mean that they're not compassionate. Bad does not mean they're not kind. Bad does not mean that they're, anti-family. Bad does not mean that they're neglectful of family and members. Bad just means they do bad things, and depending how bad they are, we'll of course be like, well, they're not just bad guys, they also abuse their family, or they're not just bad guys, but they also neglect their family, or things like that. And Easter, honestly, is not a bad guy. If you look at, he does bad things, he's not a bad person per se. His family is extremely loyal to him because Easter has done nothing but encourage that loyalty. Easter is also very loving and kind to his family. He doesn't trust all of his family members, like his 2 younger brothers, for example. But he loves Carmen, his sister. He also loves Tanya. If you read Galaxy, it was Galaxy Tanya Hawthorne, I believe, or Tanya Galaxy, I believe it was Galaxy Tanya. He loves her to pieces, he spoils her rotten, has always kind of been the thing. He does love Artemis very much, even though obviously he's psychotic, so he's got lots of, marital problems, but he does love Artemis very much, and he loves his family. He wants what's best for his family. He's just a very warped, twisted, psychotic individual, which is why he'll drinks a 6-year-old's blood for the greater good of his family, and things like that. And the only reason Easter is really seen as evil is, for one, for that reason that, if a child stands in his way, he'll take out that child, and he's, I guess, evil in the sense of the fact, it's like, oh, he mercilessly wiped out this family, but it's always been, in Easter's mind at least, there's always been a reasoning behind it, because, he is a sociopath, he's a psychopath, he's reasoned in his mind that what he's doing is for the greater good of his family, and he wants to make the Hawthorns strong. His whole thing throughout life has been proving his own strength, and now that's translated to proving he is a good, strong godfather. And he channels that into his family, whom he does love very much. He loves the Hawthorns, and he loves, and not just his siblings, but he also very much loves the members of his family. If you actually look back on the role plays, especially the one with Galaxy, the one with Carmen, the one with Tanya. I mean, Carmen again, those are pretty much how can we be evil and take over the world together? Where they're kind of feeding off of each other's crazy ambition. But when you look at with Cece, he was very much I don't want you to be here, I don't want you to be caught up in this, I want you to stay innocent and happy and not see this side of me that's been killing people and taking over in such a horrific way, but I promise that it will all be better, is his whole thing. And that's how he's able to face his family, especially the siblings like Galaxy and Cece, that he doesn't want to be corrupted. In his own words too, he doesn't want them to be like him. He doesn't want them to see what he's been doing, because he loves them, because he cares about them. So, do a lot of people hate Easter? No. And even the other families don't hate Easter. Pretty much the only one that might hate Easter is Norcross. Only for the reason that, they were allied with the Pendragons. So, and there may be individuals within the family that are like, oh, Easter, he killed the Pendragons. I mean, those were the royal family. They should be the King of Kings still. That shouldn't have happened. There shouldn't have been a contest and whatnot. But because of tradition and because of the environment they're in, there's very much that whole reluctant acceptance of, the fact that he's your king now. It's said and done. You have to accept this, because that's just the way things are. So, will there be butthurt people joining up with Oria to be her ally? Yes, but not in the numbers that you think. And family-wise, not in the numbers that you think. When we're saying he's the King of Kings, and when we were even saying the Pendragons were the King of Kings, because the thing is that there are families where their leaders are called godfathers, and even though I translated them to the 4 families of Fallowdell, that's not really what the 4 families of Fallowdell were. The 4 families from Fallowdell, being Constantine, Engelkonig, Nightingale, and Pendragon, those are royal families, where they have the purest of bloodlines, the most powerful of Theas in their midst, because of their pure Thea bloodlines. Not saying incest-wise, I'm saying pure as in they only were married with strong Theas and whatnot, so there's no human blood tainting it, and there's no generation skips of Thea powers like you would see in more mixed families. So they're royal families because at some point in history they did not just rule over families of Theas, they ruled over kingdoms of Thea families, keeping that purity and ruling over nobles, ruling over major families, ruling over minor families, and things of that nature. And I will get into more specifics about how like major minor families work, how noble theas work, that whole shebang. And then of course, like, what does it mean to be like a regular thea versus a noble thea, and all that kind of stuff. But again, and the thing is that, like, because that there's these things like the royal families and the king of kings again, he's ruling over the families that ruled kingdoms. He's ruling over actual kings. The Pendragons were descended from King Arthur, and not like the King Arthur of legend, King Arthur, but the actual figure from actual history, whose actual name from the one article I found referring to him as the hero king from Wales, was King. It was a very bizarre name, but we're just gonna call him Arthur because they both mean the same thing. It meant bear in Welsh, and Arthur means bear in Anglo-Saxon English. But King Arthur of Wales essentially is who they're descended from, and I was actually going to publish a story talking about like the Pendragons of old, and where you actually got to meet the King Arthur of Wales at that time, who was ruling the Pendragon family and the kingdom, and exactly how expansive that was and things of that nature. And pretty much like anytime you look in through history, anytime you see someone ruling a massive kingdom, that is a thea. So things like, for example, Alexander the Great was a thea, and he was a king of kings. It was Xerxes, I believe, who was the ruler of Persia, who eventually his downfall was caused by the 300 Spartans. His armies were millions of people were in his armies alone, and his kingdom spanned across the world, and it was only because of it was actually the Battle of Marathon that was the only reason why he was stopped. But and things like Hannibal, not Hannibal Lecter, but the actual Hannibal from the Roman days was a thea. Like anytime you see any figure in history who ruled over a massive kingdom at a time, exceptions are things like the presidents and whatnot. I'm talking like families passed down through the family, their royalty and whatnot. That's a thea that's ruling over them, and that is a king of kings. And now you have the Pendragons, the Constantines, Nightingales, and Engelkönigs, and those are kings of kings descended from those people. I didn't have people exactly picked out for each one, but for the Pendragons especially, that was King Arthur of legend. And the Hawthorns, being a major family, are very pure. They've just never been kings, hence why they are not royal. Hence why they are not as strong, because there has been times of intermarriage where a strong thea married a weaker thea and things like that, so there's a little bit of taint. Never has a human and thea paired up, had a child, and that child was the heir. That's very much no. Tradition dictates that if you're a thea in one of the major families, you have to marry another thea. Doesn't matter the power level necessarily, but typically stronger the better, but you have to have a thea, and you have to have a pure thea blood be able to take over the throne in order to keep that going. But now you have Easter Hawthorne, who again is not a king, but did take over. Actually, I do believe Hawthorns were from Wales. I think at some point I was saying that they went ahead and were like way back in history, like around the time of King Arthur, the family split and they're related like so far back then, but because I believe they are the Welsh family, but either way, so you have Easter, and he kills the King of Kings, and now this has never been done before, of course. It may have been done before the Pendragons. I haven't gone that far back in history. But anyway, so So this is the first time it's been done, at least in the past, you know, a couple hundred years, if not, you know, 1,000 years. And so it's like, well, crap, what do we do? And, you know, it was pretty much like, well, the ancientest text we could ever pull up was like, well, if, you know, a king, if a Thea king is killed by another Thea in combat, and of course it would have to be fair combat, not like, you know, if it was an assassination, it's assassination, you can't, you know, it doesn't work like that. But was killed, defeated, etc. in fair combat, then the one who defeated him is now the King of Kings. And Easter did so twice. He conquered the Pendragons during the battles at Stormhall, and then he wiped out the last of the Pendragon resistance when he went to battle against Akris. And even if Akris is alive, he's no longer recognized as the King of Kings because of his defeat, and because and even if he was, say, released from prison or not, even if he is the true King of Kings, it is highly unlikely that anyone would allow him to come back and be the King of Kings. Now, Akris could take the title back by force if he so chose, but it's extremely unlikely at this point, considering that all the families are now standing behind Easter as the new King of Kings, and Akris is kind of on the sidelines, like nobody knows where he is, nobody knows what's going to happen to him, and he is literally alone at this point, because the Pendragon members have been hunted down into insignificance, and they're very much scattered, and their only hope really is to go and find a family and join up with them. Hope for the best. Some of them are still slaves in the Hawthorne Tower, so Akris's forces are all but, you know, they're non-existent at this point, so it's very unlikely he'll ever come back again. And so because of this whole thing, it's extremely unlikely that Oria King will ever get the actual support she needs in order to make this happen. Again, but there is always the possibility. There will always be a method inside the madness in which there will always be the madness inside the method that will allow for such a thing to happen. But is this going to be a said and done, wipe your hands of it kind of plot? No. And again, even if, say, everybody on the site made like 15 characters each to be in Oria King's family, that does not determine that she would win. That does not determine that her victory is sealed. But because it's not, you know, numbers that dictate things, there's a lot more involved than just numbers when it comes to trying to take over that kind of position. And I did a little bit and like when I did run the Pendragon plot, there was a little bit of me just being like, screw it, for the most part, and part of that was because of reasoning that no one really joined the Pendragon family, and the people that did join the Pendragon family had all left. It was pretty much just me. There was one of Maria's characters, and that was like it. Well, I mean, like, there was, of course, Donnie's character, Asia. I think there were, like... And I think Mania had a character, or Star had a character, is something like that, but the actual characters in play were extremely few. No one was role-playing there, and, like, my brother was pretty much the head of the Pendragon family. He left, so I had to get rid of all his characters, too, etc., and it just fit with the plot. And there was also a lot of other stuff involved that led me to be like, okay, they're going, and this is how they're gonna go. So that was a little bit, just a tiny bit BS'd, but I do have enough explanation, reasoning, etc. for why it worked. But again, if Jem wants to have the position, she's gonna have to work for it. And again, like I quoted at the beginning, this is not a set and done, it's happening now plot. This is a plot that's going to be in the works for a while just because of the things that have to happen in order for it to go. Like the whole her getting allies, her establishing herself, and her Puppet King, you know, making some headway in things. So this live stream has just been kind of done as a way to kind of quell some of the questions that have been rising up from the whole thing with this plot. More specifics are going to come out as the plot advances and as more details are finalized between Gemini, and as more stuff has come up and figured out within, and of course you all will be notified of whether or not you can join, who you can join, how many characters, etc. There's going to be a few special specifics made because this is not technically not really kind of, it's kind of like it's going to be kind of in between the regulations for making a gang and the regulations that I personally use for when I make my Thea families. It's going to kind of be in between there, and that's only for plot specific reasons because I really do like the idea of this plot. I know Gem really wants to do it. I'm really excited for it, and because it did pass the approval process, that is what we're going to be heading into. So yeah, so if you have any questions even about this plot or from any of my previous live streams or anything in particular, there's going to be a live stream on Saturday, which is going to be another live Q&A live stream, and that's going to probably be my last live stream for a little bit because I am moving and I have to get internet yet for the place where I'm moving to. But that will be, but do prepare your questions. Best way to get them to me, do not PM them to me in the Chatango private messaging. Private message me on the forums messengers. If you don't know how to use those, just ask me. I can walk you through that. And so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and listening to me ranting and raving. And I hope this was very informative and has helped some people understand some basic things that are going on. Again, any more questions, prepare them for the live stream. And I'll chat y'all up soon on Aesthesis. See you guys. Bye.